That was a good one.
That was a good one.
That was really good. Welcome to Stay Sparked. On this show, we explore how to stay inspired in the modern world through the most profound lessons from Burning Man, relationships, entrepreneurship, psychedelics, spirituality, travel, and more.
On today's episode, we discussed honesty.
We talk about all the ways in which that fear has driven lies.
And we talk about different ways to bring honesty and truth into your relationships so that intimacy can blossom.
Enjoy the episode. Hello and welcome to Stay Sparked. I'm Betsy.
I'm Halcyon.
And I am Janus.
Together, we are three longtime friends who have been sharing conversations that spark so much inspiration, and we are here to spark your inspiration. Thank you so much for listening on Apple Podcasts and leaving us 5-star reviews. We really appreciate that. It helps spread the sparks. Also, if you haven't found us on Instagram yet, we'd love to hear from you there. Leave some comments and have a conversation with us. We always love starting our conversations with gratitude. So, Janus, what are you grateful for today?
In this moment, I am grateful for, it seems kind of silly, but I'm grateful for my vehicle, my car. It is, I have been putting it through its paces lately because we're getting ready to move, and I've just had a lot of running around to do. Like I mentioned before, we've recently had a baby, and so it required a lot of back and forth driving, and I just put a lot of miles in my car the last 2 months, and it's like just chugging along. And hasn't always been the case with me in cars. So it's good having a reliable car is something I'm very grateful for right now.
Yes. Grateful for your vehicle of your body too.
That is yes, for sure.
How about you, Halcyon? What are you grateful for today?
I am grateful to be celebrating my 13-year anniversary of my vasectomy. So 13 years ago, I got snipped. I decided to be very conscious about my decision to procreate, but I did freeze 5 vials of sperm. And so I'm also celebrating that I have a 4.5-year-old bio son who's going to come visit me at the end of this month and celebrate Christmas with me. So I'm super grateful for taking conscious, intentional control over my reproductive system, and it's worked out beautifully. So yay, 13 years.
Amazing. Yeah.
Nice.
Well, I am going to give thanks for the house that I'm in right now. It's a beautiful home that I've lived in for the last year, and I will share my gratitude for the remodel that is happening in our kitchen right now. We're getting some new cabinets, so at some point you might hear some banging, and that's actually some really good things that are happening in our kitchen. So really grateful for what I like to call temple upgrades, because our house is like a temple, so we're upgrading.
I love
Really
it.
grateful.
It's not disruptive. It's the sounds of progress.
Yes, that's right. Yes, it's all about perspective. Yes, so I'm excited to explore a conversation with you guys today about honesty and our relationship to honesty and truth, and also the other side of that, withholding or, not being fully in integrity with our truth or with our relationships. And so I'd love to just kind of start us off with the shadow side of honesty, right? Which is lying. I think that we probably all have experienced that at some time or another, especially in the youth. As young children, we learn how to lie, and then we learn about the consequences. And so I'd love to kind of inquire from that place if there's anything that you guys can share around what you've learned from not being honest, whether that has been recent or from a younger age.
Oh boy. Well, I think I mean, we lie because we want to control people's reactions. We want to avoid a confrontation. We want to get a reaction that we think would be best. And so I definitely was guilty of that when I was younger. Luckily, my father, his number one value was truth and honesty. And so the times that I was punished the worst was when I lied. I can remember telling him because I didn't want to go stop on our way someplace. I didn't want to stop and go to a garage sale. So I told him that I'd already gone there and there wasn't anything good. And when he found out that that wasn't true, I was grounded, as if I had, beaten up my brother and got a tattoo on my face. I mean, he was very, very upset. Um, but it's interesting how I still will find myself like canceling a dinner reservation at a restaurant. And instead of just saying, I can't make it, I'll say, oh, have, I have to go do something, or like I make up a lie. Like there's a part of my brain that wants to like soothe the situation. And so part of this conversation and this awareness of the power and of honesty is recognizing that whatever short-term consequence or whatever short-term friction might happen is of a higher vibration, a higher value long-term than whatever you're trying to protect yourself from.
Yeah. And that's something that it can be a challenge to kind of slough off of you, or kind of drop as we get older. It's like we can get into a habit when we're younger of telling lies and getting away with them and being like, oh, okay, that almost becomes a tool in your tool belt that you can use on occasion. And you carry that into life. And then, speaking from firsthand experience, it becomes heavy. It becomes, every time it's like, you tell a lie, even like a white lie, it's just like, ugh, you just kind of feel it on your heart. It's almost like somebody just handed you like a half pound kind of weight. It's just like, and especially when a lot of people, as you get older, some people become in touch with their intuition, even if they're not quite aware of it. And there have been a couple of times where I've told like white lies or maybe gray lies. And I immediately see the person didn't buy it. And even if they didn't quite reveal that they didn't buy it, something changes in their expression or just their demeanor. I'm like, oh shit, I just told this lie and they completely saw right through it, even if they're not aware. And that just sucks. That just doesn't feel good for anybody involved. So yeah, the sooner we can come to grips with, or come to terms with, the idea that, okay, honesty is the best policy. Is like, we hear these things repeatedly, and if we hear them repeatedly, it's usually because they're true. And I think it's important to get to a point in life sooner than later where you kind of realize that and this is maybe a different topic entirely, but just kind of coming to terms with the idea, like, oh, I don't owe anybody an explanation. Honestly, so frankly, as a kid, housing, it could have been like, we're going to go to this garage sale. I don't want to go to the garage sale. And it's like, instead of coming up with a reason like why you shouldn't get out of it, you could just be like, I don't want to go. And your dad made like, oh, we're going. All right, well, yeah, that sucks. But a lot of times we just be like, I just don't want to go. And I had somebody tell me once, that's how I got it for myself. It's like, I asked for like a reason, and she was about for some reason, and she's like, I don't owe you a reason. I don't want to do this thing because I don't want, why? Because I don't want to. And I was like, oh, you're actually right. I'm triggered by that, but you're right. And the sooner we get to that place with ourselves, we can kind of drop the need for dishonesty, or the feeling of that there's a need for dishonesty.
Totally. Yep. I completely agree. I have so many sparks going too. It's like I even wrote down some notes. Like, why do we make up unnecessary excuses for ourselves, right? It's so funny. It's like a conditioning. And going back to the childhood part of this, is like we get to learn where those consequences come from, right? And so it's like, oh, we play around with, well, what can I get away with? And then watch what happens. So my nephew recently got caught in a lie, and it was an unnecessary lie. It was like he had stopped somewhere and then he told a lie about it. And it's not like he did anything to get in trouble, but he got in more trouble for the lie. Right. And so it's like we get to learn where those consequences come from, and then continue to practice where can we show up to really share truthfully, and I think that one of the practices I have been cultivating over some time is through text messaging, and recognizing like, yeah, I don't need to make up some excuse if I, have something come up. So I'll give you an example. I used to be, I feel a lot of shame if I accidentally double booked myself, because I do massage therapy and I see clients, And there's been times where I accidentally double book myself, and the old tendency would be like to message a person and make up some excuse that was not true. And then I would start to catch myself and go like, wait, why am I doing that? I'm human. And I want my clients to understand that I'm human. So I started to practice actually either letting them know, like, I deeply apologize. I actually double booked myself, and then just have that honest conversation and watch how it created a more depth of intimacy and trust and respect when the truth came, right? And then also then practicing other times where I would kind of like just simplify the answer, like you're saying, Jonas, is like, I don't actually need an excuse here. I remember one time where I was out of town and I had forgotten that I had a client scheduled, and then we had messaged, and instead of going into a long story, especially via text, I'm sure we've all experienced that, was like a long excuse. Oh my gosh, I totally forgot that I had you on my calendar, and the da 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 da. It's like, no, I'm just clear and direct. Hey, it looks like I'm going to need to reschedule, period. No need to make up all these reasons why I screwed up. Simplify. And I feel like that has actually created so much more lightness and more ease.
Totally.
Certainly.
There's there's the consequence of honesty, which could be, getting in trouble. But there's this deeper consequence, which is losing trust. That short term, long term. Okay, like I didn't get in trouble for the thing, but I've eroded this super precious thing, which is trust. And that's a massive consequence. And I think that also the desire to give an explanation, it's part of this deeper need for control and trying to control the outcome and trying to, like, you think you know what's best, so you're trying to massage the information, the tone, so that you get the outcome that you think you want, but that's not up to you. That's not your responsibility. And you don't know what's best. So, I mean, all that really matters is, I cannot make this appointment. Let's reschedule. Whatever happens after that is totally outside of your control. And honestly, if you let go and surrender, there's a good chance it's all going to work out way better.
Absolutely. And getting all mixed up in all the extra words and verbiage, dancing around a subject. I've had situations before where it's like we're just trying to get to this specific point, and because of fear of hurting somebody, or because of, like, I'm not sure how this person's going to actually receive my truth, then all this excess language comes in, and then it muddles the point, and it makes it much more difficult for the other person to actually understand what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, a good tool that I've found when sharing most anything that might be proved to be somewhat challenging or difficult for somebody to receive, just leading with, all right, I have to be honest with you here, or I'm compelled to be honest with you, or I want to be honest with you here. I found that clears out 90% of the that follows the rest of what I'm about to say. Because if I just be like, I don't really want to do that with you anymore, or this doesn't feel in alignment for me anymore. If I just lead that with, I want to be honest with you here, that whole trust factor that you're mentioning, Halcyon, that draws people in. It's like, somebody's being honest with me. I like that. I appreciate that. I'm feeling respected and honored. Before they go through all that, before you've even said anything else. And that just kind of in my experience, makes people more receptive to what you have to say. So yeah, people like being respected. Shocking.
Absolutely.
But yeah,
I would even add like a tactic that I add on a lot of conversations, or any conversation that could potentially have tension, is, do you have a moment for me to share this? I'd like to be honest for you. Do you have a moment for me to get into it right now? So you're like, they're going to say yes no matter what, but you're kind of allowing them this experience of, okay, I am choosing to be in this conversation with you, instead of I'm going to give you this thing. I'm going to throw it at you. It's like, so it just changes the energy of it with that, like,
it's setting the container also for honest and deep conversations. And I will disagree, actually, if that they will always say yes. Because sometimes I know I personally have practiced this with NVC and some very dear friends, checking in, hey, can we have an honest conversation? And then going, actually, you know what? I need to eat first, right? Or like, let me check in with my basic needs. Am I actually able to receive your honesty right now? Actually, no, I'm supposed to be somewhere in like 3 minutes, so no. Can we bookmark
Mm,
it? Right, but I
That's
think
best
that is
case scenario. That's awesome. If
and
someone can avoid the instinct of saying yes and actually that's beautiful.
yeah, having conversations, I think, is really important to set people up. I love what you're saying, though, as a request instead of just like pouring our stuff on somebody, checking in, are you able to actually receive? I received a message the other day from a friend who I love her so much. Shout out to you, Amy. Her communication is incredible. She messaged me and said, do you have space to hear a vulnerable share around something that happened in our lunch the other day? Because something came
Mm.
up. She had a little trigger, something that happened in our conversation. And it gave me this really beautiful place within myself to just kind of center and ground and breathe and, trust that what she was going to say was going to be okay, rather than her just launching at me on a message saying, hey, by the way, at our lunch the other day, I was really unhappy about dot, dot, dot. And then I got to respond with love and say, yes, I care about you. I want to know how you feel. And if there's ever anything that, upset you in our relationship, I do want to know. And then that helped her to soften and feel more connected. And then it created the space for honesty around her feelings. And
yeah.
we cleared it right away.
Love that.
Yeah. Yeah. The idea of brutal honesty is like something that gets kind of we just drop on people sometimes. But and I think a lot of in a lot of our experience, like people who are like advocates for brutal honesty are more interested in the brutal part of it than the honesty part of it. And it's like, how about, because it goes back to saying, also that saying that we should treat others as you would want to be treated. Is like, no, actually treat others the way they would like to be treated. So that's how we should approach these things, instead of like, you feel like I got I have an honest share I really feel like I need to drop with I need to drop it on Betsy, instead of like, I like brutal honesty, like just being straight out with it. It's like, no, not everybody's like that. So being like, so then calling, setting the container, like you just mentioned, is like the perfect way to go about that. It's the perfect way for us to receive that and to deliver that as well.
I still love that Amy example because I mean, I think a lot of us are trained to pursue harmony, and so the lunch finishes, there's a little kind of little seed of resentment or frustration or something that didn't go well, and you go, well, we're good friends, whatever, I'm just going to let it go. And we tell ourselves, I'm going to let it go, but we don't really, and this thing is kind of in there, it's kind of in there, and but there's this huge intimacy building and trust that happens when you say, you're basically saying, I want us to be fully open and able to love all of us completely. And for me to do that, there's this thought. It's not a judgment. It's not a terrible thing. It's just a little thought that is in the way. And in the pursuit of us being as close as possible, would you join me in this process of getting this out and getting it, removing it? And if both people can commit to that, it builds, you love the person more, you appreciate it. And I think it's really hard though, especially when you're trained to be worried that, well, what if they get upset? What if they're mad at me? What if this makes them so that I hurt their feelings, which is a
It's
possibility, but a real relationship, a real friendship, a real, romantic relationship, you want to have the momentary bristling so that you can trust the other person not to keep adding things to their box of secrets and resentments.
Yep, absolutely. Beautifully said, Halcyon. Thank you so much for that. And I love that you said the seed, right? Because you planted a little seed of resentment, frustration, or like something that you're holding on to. And the seed is tiny. But if you don't tend to the garden of our friendships, the garden of our relationships, those seeds can start to overtake the environment, right? And so to be able to have the communication skills and tools, I think is a very important part of cultivating the healthy, honest, integrous kind of conversations, where I feel like that does take work. I know personally for me, nonviolent communication has been a huge, huge component. And I'm so grateful that I've had friends that have been willing to learn that tool with me and practice it with me because, it's not easy. It's not trained as young children. And maybe some people learn that growing up. Hopefully more and more children are learning how to communicate from, that structure of knowing what our needs are and compassionate communication. But otherwise, it can just turn into more trauma and more withholding, or like, I'm fearful that this person's not going to be able to, understand what I'm trying to say. So I'm just not going to say anything. And then it just builds up over time, and that seed just grows and creates distance between the relationships. And so, yeah, NVC is a really powerful resource. And then I also want to recommend another book that has really changed my relationships a lot. It's called Radical Honesty. I don't remember the author, but we'll put it in the show notes. Radical
Is it
Honesty is
Tara Brach, I believe?
okay.
Brach, I think. Tara Brach, I'm not sure.
A game changer. And I got to share just how this book came into my life, because you know how books sometimes just they jump off the shelf or they just show up right when you need it. So I was in a relationship many, many years ago, and my intuition was sensing that there was some like leaky energy, that he was having other little flirty relationships via messaging and stuff like that. And I could feel something was off. And I checked in with him about it, and he said, no, 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 you're my person. But I could just feel something. And that book started to show up. I was like, we were traveling and we stayed at someone's house, and that was like on the nightstand, and then it popped up somewhere else. And then I was like, maybe we should read this book together. And then we started to read the book, and lo and behold, what started to come through is a space of honesty. And he did share with me that he was having some other connections with other women and not sharing with me because he didn't know how to. He was fearful that if he had attractions to other women, that it would, dismantle what we had. And so he was keeping it secret. And that was actually a contributor to manifesting what he didn't want. It created a
Wow.
major wedge between us. Whereas I feel if he would have come to me early on and said, hey, I really value our relationship. You are my number one primary partner, and I'm just noticing some feelings I'm having for these other women, then we could have a conversation about that. Let's actually tune into, where is that coming from? Do we want to open? Do we want to explore something else here? And I feel like that would have probably created a deeper bond between us, because the honesty, right? And so I learned so much from that relationship, the challenge and the trauma that it really induced, and that feeling of being lied to or withheld from. And then that book was the catalyst to now other relationships that have gotten so much healthier because of understanding how to be radically honest.
That's amazing.
Mhm.
That I went to I went to a 12-step meeting when I went to Burning Man. I'm not in 12-step, but I went to a meeting, and somebody shared this idea that has really stuck with me. He says, when you have a truth that you withhold, something that you're being dishonest about, that's something that you put in a box. And once you start putting things in the box, it just starts multiplying. And that box is the obstacle for your connection. And so the objective needs to be keep the box empty, keep the box empty, empty the box, empty the box. And so in that example, if you were trying to build a relationship with empty boxes, so you could truly accept and love one another as you truly are, even if that means you have a thought or a desire that isn't what you want the other person to have, but you trust them to tell you it allows you to work through it and find a place. But whereas if once you start saying, okay, I'm having these thoughts, I don't want to share it with them because I'm worried what they might think, and then the story, the part of yourself that is secret gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And that has been a mantra for me. Keep the box empty, keep the box empty, empty the box, empty the box. And there are times when I'm like, so my partner and I, we have every couple of weeks we have a conversation of like, is there anything that you don't want to tell me? which to me is the best prompt. There's other ways of like, is there anything that's hard for you to say? Are there things, but for me, is there anything that you don't want to tell me? And like, I just go, it almost always like, oh, yes. And it could be, when yes, this yesterday, I was like, um, you wanted to clean the sheets. And so you took the sheets off and you put in the laundry, and then you left town. And that night I was tired and I stumbled into bed, and I had to make the bed because you decided to clean the sheets and then you didn't make the bed. Now, is that a big deal? Absolutely not. But it was a thought that I had that caused this little like zing of like, ugh. So I'm like, so now I've said it. She knows that as a human being, I had this thought. It's now totally free from any judgment about her, and we can move on. And she trusts me now to say something. If anything happens, she will trust me to go, okay, I'm having this thing that I didn't want to say to you, but I'm going to say it because I love you that much.
So amazing. So especially in the domestic realms, 'cause so much can come up in partnership. And I want to tack something onto that it goes back to the nonviolent communication model, is adding the requests that can really create some more understanding and connection, right? Like I noticed that I felt frustrated. I felt my emotion. I felt frustrated that the bed was not made. It's not a big deal, but I really would like to request that in the future, if you choose to wash the sheets, it would be really helpful for you to either let me know I need to put them on earlier in the day, or, would you be willing to maybe just take an extra couple minutes and make the bed, because of that way I don't go to bed feeling frustrated. That's a really powerful practice.
Certainly. And yeah, just the idea of finishing a job is kind of is a big thing for me. I try to not start anything that I'm not able to finish. So, but that whole conversation, that asking, like, is there something that you don't want to tell me, that is we talked about the idea of permission engines, and that allows me to, like, you just been granted a big permission slip to say that thing, and that's such a fantastic inquiry. That is valuable in so many different areas that I can think of. And moving further into the idea of honesty in relationships, there's a saying, I think it's by Anna Eastman, I'm not entirely sure, but it goes something along the lines like, if the truth would destroy a thing, then that thing deserves to be destroyed. And there's so much that we can have in our lives that we just kind of know that, wow, if everybody's being perfectly honest, this thing is not going to continue to go. Like, if I'm being perfectly honest with myself, I can't be in this job anymore, or I can't have this person as a friend anymore, whatever. And we're happy to kind of live with that lie, for want of a better term, or that dishonesty, because it's just that the idea of what's on the other side of that is just uncomfortable. It's unknown. We're uncomfortable with the unknown, but there's so much goodness that comes from that radical honesty, that we bring that into our lives. There's I'll tell the brief story, leaving the names out, but there was a friend who was going to be participating in their first ayahuasca ceremony that I was helping to set up, and their partner reached out to me privately and said, like, can you tell them that there's no room in this thing? I just don't want them to be in it. They're like, why do you want that? Why would I do that? And it's like, because I think they're going to leave me. I'm afraid they're going to leave me if they do the ceremony. And I had this quote fresh in my head, which I did not share with them, but I was like, I can't do that. If whatever is going to come on the other side is going to be best for it. It's going to be to everybody's benefit, ultimate benefit. I believe that. And sure enough, they did the ceremony, and I didn't get to check in with them right away, but I saw them the following weekend. I'm like, hey, so how's the integration going? And they were like, yeah, you didn't tell me the whole having to upend every part of my life thing that comes with that medicine. I was like, oh yeah, that. So she was like, I have to leave my partner, I have to quit my job, I have to move out. Everything is, I'm not being truthful to myself, I'm not being honest with myself. And that's a scary place to be in, just to dive into the unknown. But what came out of that was they ended up finally diving into and committing to their own business, which exploded like the moment she committed to it. She found her perfect partner, marriage, kids, this, that, and the other thing, all the stuff that she was keeping herself from, just because you're not living your truth. And that can be a scary thing to do. But there's another saying that says goes something along the lines like your destiny is encountered on the path you take to avoid it. And we can craft something. It's like, I don't want to like face this hard truth. You're going to get there eventually, and it can be painful. The degrees of pain you're going to experience are directly correlated to the degree you're willing to commit to truth, and that is something that is always going to benefit you in the long run.
Oh, that's so good. I give thousands of these stickers away that say, be present, have integrity, align with love. And I use it as a tool for when I get in my head of like trying to control truth, like trying to say what I think needs to be said to get the outcome that I think I need. And so but instead, I need to just be present, have integrity, align with love, and then say or act from that place. And when I give it to people, I often make the joke. I say, now my lawyer makes me tell people that you could lose your job or your relationship could end, but I promise you it will lead you to where you're supposed to be. And the truth is the same way. That's what it's about.
Well, indeed.
So powerful. As you guys know, I love starting my days with questions. So affirmations can also be in the form of questions. And the question that's arising for just my own personal self-inquiry is, am I living in my ultimate truth today? Am I really being honest with myself in this particular situation, right? I think that's a really powerful way to check in with oneself. Am I being honest and really truthful? Am I living my truth? And you're right, it can really bring up a lot, because there's certain places where we want to just go along for the ride and hide and play small or do the things, but life is short. Life is short, and it's really important for each of us to be able to bring our most authentic truth to this world. That way we can show up the best way that we can. And if we're compromising our truth or compromising the honesty within our own self, then how is that actually really contributing to a better world, contributing to why we're here, our mission on this planet?
Yeah, I was gonna get to that actually. Like the life is short aspect is like, okay, like what are we doing? Like, do we think we have forever to get around to this? Because there's a lot of times we realize like, okay, this is not what I want. Whether it's job, relationship, whatever the connection is. If I'm being truthful, this is not what I want, but I am not yet ready to blow this up. So I got to come up with a way to like ease myself out of this or whatever. But the moment we have that realization, we are on the clock, because that what we become, if we're committed to authenticity. And I think a lot of the people who listen to us are, or at least we're all getting there, or working on it. It's, once we realize like we're not living entirely in our truth, the clock is ticking for us to rectify this or to move into a place that's more in alignment, because the longer we dilly-dally, the thing that we need to shift is going to shift. We can either shift it or it is going to be shifted for us. That getting things shifted for us doesn't always feel great. It doesn't always result in like, if I handle this relationship transition or this thing that needs to happen correctly and in integrity and alignment, the idea that we'll be able to remain friends after that is very high, as opposed to just putting it off, and then all of a sudden it explodes. I've lost a friend. I've lost this and that and the other thing. It's just a mess that needs to be cleaned up. So living in truth is not easy, but it is highly beneficial to us and everybody else involved. The thing we're trying to shift.
Just breathing that in right there. Yes, wisdom bombs, Janus. Thank you. Living in truth is not always easy, but it is an essential.
I had someone yesterday reach out to me, and they were telling me they knew that their relationship, needed to end, and had been ongoing for a while in this state. And they were saying, that they didn't want to, hurt the person that they still love. They just know that they can't be together, and they wanted to protect them from the pain, and all the challenges of, new place to live, new life, all this stuff. And I had to really kind of shake him and say, right now, you think you're protecting this person and that you are allowing this person that you say you love to build a life around lies, to build a life around a version of you that is not real. And you have no idea what is on the other side of those challenges for her. This person right now they think they're having a certain relationship in a certain life, but you are inflicting this total lie on them without their consent. Whereas if you give them the truth, even if it's pain, they then can go through the pain, their struggle, and grow. That's what life is. You have pain and struggle and you grow. And I said, look, a year ago, I was in love. I had my heart broken. I was at the lowest point in my life, and it led me to where I am right now, as happy as I've ever been in my life. So you cannot use your little ego mind to try to avoid pain and avoid pain in others with deceit and lies, because you don't know what's best.
Woo!
Right.
Yes, that's
Boom.
right. Yeah, that's right. And withholding is lying.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
it's really interesting to consider, where do these lies or withholdings come from? And it comes from fear. Fear
Yeah.
of hurting another person, fear of, things changing. It's oftentimes it's very scary to make big changes. And so we're just going to operate from that place of fear. And here we are as love ambassadors, right? And love is not always easy. It can be challenging to say the thing or to take the step to do what's right and that is most aligned, and we can call ourselves out if we're operating from fear. Then we get to readjust. And one of the things that I really love practicing, especially when we're talking about lying in relationship or withholding or not being fully honest, I like to imagine that everyone is psychic. That is a really fun practice. Like, everybody can hear what I'm thinking. If everybody can hear what I'm thinking, you guys know what I'm thinking, then I want my thoughts to be in the highest integrity, that is of love, that is of kindness, right? Because we are all connected. And it's very likely true, right? If you're in a
Yeah.
relationship that is not serving, then it's likely that other person is having some thoughts too. How much are your higher selves having a conversation? Right. And so that's been a really, really beautiful way to hold myself in integrity, to be honest and to be true, is just imagining. You all already know what I'm thinking anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. And just kind of recognizing that, yeah, you can see you'll be able to see the truth on my face, or, what people like, wear my heart on my sleeve. There's like, vulnerability is a superpower, and just being like authentic, even when it's, telling you that, what's the saying, like, tell the truth even if your voice cracks. Like, just really finding that courage to love the other person enough to be honest with them, tell them the truth, and kind of overcome our own fears. That childhood, urge to be liked, kind of leads us to tell lies in order to get liked, because we don't want to be, because it's the fear of being disliked. But the more we're like more solid in ourselves, and at the end of the day we can look at ourselves in the mirror and be like, I was in my highest integrity all day today. I said some hard, difficult truths, I did some challenging things, and I feel pretty good about myself about that. So it's, yeah, that individual integrity feels really good at the end of the day.
Well, and it can be so liberating to let go of the assignment to do and say the things that you need to say to be liked, because it's like you're auditioning constantly, but if
Right.
instead you're just honest and trust, it's like, I think Ron Boss had something about, like, if you're going to judge me based on what I'm trying or pretending to do, I mean, that makes sense. But if you're going to judge me based on my truth and who I truly am, that's like judging the color of a flower or the shape of a cloud. It's crazy, that's totally in your head. I had having an interesting experience. Like, so I am actually meeting my partner's parents later today, and they have, or at least her mom has been She's read my book and she's been listening to my daily broadcasts. And so I've had to go through this process of like, okay, I'm at peace with this. You know, like, did I say things that if we were having dinner together, would I say to my partner's parents? Absolutely not. I would be on my best behavior. But I'm kind of feel awesome that like I've got nothing to hide. She has heard and seen me in my truth. It's like what uh Mark Twain said, you know, if you tell the truth, you don't have to remember what you said. I've got no script, nothing I need to pretend. I just got to keep being me. And whatever the reactions are is outside of my control. It's
That's
freeing.
amazing. That is so powerful. You are such a role model in the realm of allowing yourself to be seen in the fullness of who you are. Every bit of the spectrum, you have really modeled that to your community and to your followers. For those of you that haven't gotten to know Halcyon very well, go on his Facebook page and scroll for a few minutes. You'll get to learn so much. You really have been such a beautiful inspiration in that way of just, yeah, being honest. This is who I am. And if whether you like it or not, that's okay. I'm going to keep being who I am. That's a really beautiful way that you allow your honest truth be seen.
And what I find is what we're talking about here is that, you know, if if you if you trust people, you show people, I'm going to trust you with the truth. And even if it's like, whoa, there is something that happens when you go, oh, you trusted me with that. Okay. All right. We now have a deeper connection. Even people that I've never met, you know, like when we do meet, like they know I'm not, I don't have my teeth. I've got my, you know, my throat bared. Like, I trust you. I trust you. And that allows for a deep connection quickly with people.
Mm.
Yeah, and also just really considering our own intuition is really important too, because if it is not safe to share our truth, then it's important to know when and where is right timing,
Good point.
because sometimes it might not be safe to share. Certain relationships, it's not a good environment to actually share how you're really feeling because it might actually create more trauma or disconnect or violence, and so using our intuition to be able to know when and where, right? And certain times it might be important to just simplify and pause and just be with whatever it is that's coming up.
Yeah, I
Mm.
think that's really important. I'm glad you said that because
Mm.
when we're talking about the sharing of honesty, it's in the pursuit of deep honesty and trust. And there are many relationships in our life where harmony and safety is more important. You know,
Mm.
like you might have workplace environments where it's like, no, what I want in this relationship is not soul deep connection and intimacy. What I want is harmony. So they don't need to know everything about me. You know, you might have relationships in your family where you're like, you know, they don't need to know everything about me. Now, I think that if you have stuff in your box within your family, at some point in your life, you're probably going to have the thought, could I risk letting them see all of me and see what happens? But again, you're right. That is a safety thing. That is a harmony thing. And we make those choices in all of our relationships.
Yeah, yeah, it's an important aspect to it to bring up. So thank you again, Betsy, for that. Because yeah, sometimes we gotta kind of keep it close to the vest a little bit. We might surprise ourselves because I've had a friend who was like, oh, I couldn't possibly be honest with my parents about this thing that she and I were doing together. But then I met her parents and I just happened to drop that I was like doing this thing, and her parents like, oh, that sounds great. You should do that. like you should do that with her. She's like, yeah. I'm like, yes, you should do that with me. And she's like, maybe I will. I don't know, a whole bit. And she's like, mind was blown. It's like, wow, I had no idea. I'm like, yeah, give people a chance to surprise you. Yes, there is that, and then also recognize, like, once we become to the point where we get to the point where okay, I gotta be truthful. I gotta be honest. Be able to read the room as well and know when it's time to. If it's all clear and feels like it's good time, by all means, like let your truth fly. But really recognize, like, okay, I need to actually kind of hold on to this for a little bit until there will be a better time. And if we're being truthful about that to ourselves, we can kind of follow that practice. But be sure that we are being truthful to ourselves about that and not just kicking the can down the road as well. It's important.
And I think versions of nonviolent communication can be helpful in those type of reveals as well.
Mhm.
If your truth is, when you did this as a kid, I always, like, no, 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 like, but you can use nonviolent communication to explain how I had, your experiences, and I'm not a scholar in it, but just that the energy of nonviolent communication can be used when you are sharing your truth.
Yeah, absolutely. And then checking in with what is the intention for wanting to share?
Mm.
Like you
Mhm.
shared, Halcyon, is it harmony? Is it deeper connection? If I have something coming up that I am processing and I feel like I need to share it with somebody, is it because I need to feel right? Or is it because I need to feel seen? Is there something deeper in there for me that wants to build deeper connection? Like what is my intention for wanting to share a truth, right? And I'll give an example is that I had a relationship where we had been together for many years, and then towards the end when we broke up, we were like, you know what, we're going to have a meeting and we're going to share all of the things that we actually feel. I'm going to be really honest with you. And it was like very resentful, and really like coming from that place of like we'd been holding on to all of this stuff, and it actually was very revealing to us that we both were like, wow, we both have been holding on to this stuff for so long. Why didn't we actually create a safe space to share how we were really feeling? And it actually turned into a really big lesson for both of us going forward in other relationships to like do these different practices. Like you shared, Halcyon, around having the safe place to communicate with your partner. Hey, is there anything that you're not saying? And I think we've referenced the Multi-Amory podcast before, where they promote something called a radar, and it is for intimate relationships. And I think it can be used in family dynamics as well to
Agreed.
create a consistent check-in. Like, so once a month, for example, we're going to have our radar, which is like putting a radar on anything that might need to be cleared. Like, is there something that needs to be shared here that we can work through? And it can be very healthy. Whereas that previous part of me, that younger version that was in a relationship, we didn't have that tool. So we just kind of would internalize it, and then it would come out as like little daggers of just kind of subconscious kind of manipulations or withholding or passive aggressive conversations, because we didn't actually know how to be honest with one another. So the tools that we learn really can be supportive.
Hmm. Yeah. There's something I wanted to run by you guys that was triggered by what Halcyon mentioned. And we might be getting close to wrapping up soon, but I wanted to touch on this. You mentioned the process of like the thing you had with your partner about making the bed.
Mhm.
And my personal approach for that is like there's a lot of stuff that we have that is like just our stuff, our own little peccadillos, our own little OCDness. Not that your situation was falling into this category, but there's a lot of stuff that I look at in the world that's a lot of my stuff that is my stuff. And I tried not to burden my partner with certainly not all of it, but there's something that I'm like, all right, if I just work this out myself, I don't need to necessarily bring it up to my partner. This, like, this, and the idea under the guise of being honest about my feelings and stuff. So, and it goes to what Betsy also mentioned about the radar framework of relationship, which is something worth, like, anybody listening right now is not familiar with it, is definitely worth looking up. I find that when my partner and I have an idea, like we schedule a radar, like, hey, we're going to have our monthly talk this Sunday, and the stuff that I want to bring up in between that time and the time like Sunday rolls around, I have worked out the thing that I was already annoyed about. So I don't feel like it needs to come up, because I had a couple days to like just kind of sit with it, process, and be like, all right, that's just me and my stuff. I'm fine. I don't need to like present this to my partner for something else to look at and analyze and talk about. I'm over it already. So, and it's not something I feel like I'm putting into a box. Um,
Totally.
as we mentioned before. So I'm just wondering how you guys feel about that. Are you guys in the idea like, okay, this is me and my Betsiness, I'm just going to work out here as opposed to give it to them? Or are you guys like, no, we got to talk about it? Okay, it's gonna come up. Where are you guys at with that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Checking in with self first is really powerful. Like, is this mine? Is this a projection? Am I, seeing this person as a reflection of me and taking that time to really be with it? And I think, what you're speaking to is really powerful because you have a specific point on your future timeline that you're going to be able to have that clearing or space to connect at least. And then that gives you the more motivation to really check in. Where can I actually take responsibility for this part? And also, is this mine to share? Is this going to bring value to this other person? Or is this going to bring value to our relationship by me sharing? Or is this actually going to create more distance and frustration? Right? I think those are really powerful places to inquire before trying to like just, spew our honesty. This is how I
Mm.
really feel. It's yeah, self-responsibility.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
it's interesting because I definitely think, the process of going through the trigger, the reaction, and figuring, oh, is this just my stuff, is absolutely critical. Um, but even if it is all my stuff, I still think it can be a healthy thing to share. I think it can be an intimacy thing to say, like, hey, I got worked up, like, or I'll even jokingly, like, oh my gosh, last night I stubbed my toe, and I had the thought, I blamed you because you went to bed early and I was being quiet, and because I was quiet, I didn't turn on the light, and so I stubbed my toe, and so I had this feeling of being angry at you. Now, I'm not asking, there's no request, but there is this insight into, I'm not trying to protect you from the thoughts that I'm having. And I also think that if it is a request and it's said in the right way, you're allowing the other person the ability to be a hero in your story, to do something that is a gift for you. So, I mean, it'd be different if I demanded something or I was angry, but by saying, you know, I I had this moment when I crawled into bed, like, next time I would love it if you would tell me that the sheets need to be changed. Now, turns out she did say that I'm leaving you with the sheets not on, and I didn't
Ooh.
hear her. So I had to joke and say, I never listened to you anyways, babe. Sorry about that. Um,
Ouch.
that's not true. That's just a little insight into our dynamic of humor that we have, though. Okay. But I think I think for me there still can be a benefit in just giving someone an insight into the way my mind gets triggered and the way that I have the thoughts. When I have that perspective of I'm through this thing, and look what this wild, crazy thing that my ego did, yesterday.
Mm.
Amazing. I love this conversation. I could feel us spiraling. There's more. There's so much more in this conversation. And I love how we kind of come to our decisions on how to, what's the topic going to be on, and then just being surprised on what comes through. And so this morning when we were talking about the topic of honesty, it was like, let's see. And
Mhm.
here we are. I feel like love to start to wrap it up here. Maybe we'll have another future conversation about it. Love to hear from you guys out there as well around what's sparking for you. But in tradition of Stay Sparked, let's do some closing sparks, shall we?
Yes.
Yeah.
The thing that's popping in my head right now is a clothing spark. This incredible book of life lessons from a lion tamer, or like, excuse me, a lion tracker. He speaks about the master tracker is this person that he speaks of who is the same person in every setting. At a dinner party, out in the wild, he's just totally at peace with who he is and is honest. He's never trying to pretend to be anything. And to me, that's like the goal of life. And the only way you get there is through honesty. That removing the filter of thinking about what's the right thing to do here and just being yourself, which is way harder than I think we think, but it is it's the path to intimacy and self-love.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
agreed. And once we go down that path that you're talking about, my what kind of triggers my closing spark is that when we start to really walk in this world as our authentic selves and walking in our truth, it's true that we might find things, people, situations kind of dropping off of or dropping out of our lives, and our our container of concern becomes a little narrower, becomes a little smaller, because it becomes less about quantity and more about quality. And there's just really not, it's hard to have a massive container of quality. It's like that's also like just has a lot in it. So we become more concerned with quality. So that's becomes a bit of a, kind of a fear-based kind of thing. Like, oh, if I'm walking in my truth, people aren't going to like me, or people are going to fall away. It's like, well, the people who stick around are the ones who really like you, the ones who really get you and love you and adore you and want to hear what you have to say and want to see what you have to offer in this world. And that's being surrounded by that, even if it's like 10 people, is much greater and runs deeper than being surrounded by 100 acquaintances who only like you when you say the right thing or when you sing the right song, so to speak. So yeah, things are going to look different once we really start to walk in our truth. But that walk that path is covered in rose petals, and it feels really good, and the scenery there is pretty fantastic. So stay courageous for that.
Yes, I love that so much. I will share my closing spark from this conversation is tending to the garden of our own inner landscape, right? It's cleaning up any weeds, clearing out places that we're not being in integrity with ourselves, cleaning out any places that we are making unnecessary excuses that are actually coming from fear, right? And those little tiny things, like we talked about the text messaging, right? It's like cleaning up those little things in all of our relationships and every day in every way, then we get to be in greater alignment to our own integrity. And then that just creates a ripple effect of goodness in our relationships and in the world, right? It's like we want a better world, and it really starts with our own inner process and how we act towards one another, right? And so I think that is one of the biggest and most transformative practices every day in every way, just being in integrity. Yeah, that's my closing spark. So
Amen.
hopefully y'all out there are feeling some sparks, feeling some inspiration to continue to live in your truth, whatever that might mean for you. And I'd love to close this out. Also, if anyone out there would like to start to work with us or to just even learn more about us. So, Janus, would you let our listeners know where they can find you?
Certainly. I have a nutritional supplement company called NuWorld Nutritionals, spelled NuWorldNutritionals.com. And we have products designed to help elevate and improve your state of mind. Definitely is a mood enhancer, but also improves your, things like learning, memory, retention, helps alleviate symptoms of ADHD, even PTSD, forms of dementia, anxiety, anything neurological. It improves that. They're all mushroom-based products, and you can find us online, also on Facebook and Instagram, NuWorld with a U. And you can use the code SPARKED for 10% off of all of our products.
That's Sparked, SPARKED.
Correct.
All right.
Amazing. Thank you, Jonas. How about you, Halcyon?
You can find me and my goodies at johnston.com, JOHNSTYN, which includes things like I'm doing a live gathering workshop day and evening festivity in January 2nd, 13th, 14th. As well as there's an offer for a free sticker, the sticker that I showed here, the Be Present, Have Integrity, Align with Love. If you, there's a little link there to get a free sticker sent to you. And so many other good things. So check me out and let's stay connected.
Yeah, amazing. Awesome. And you guys can find more of my goodies and offerings in the World Wide Web on poweraffirmation.com, which is my company and project that really helps to inspire tools for sustainable happiness, cultivating a deeper, more loving relationship with self, which then ripples out into the world. So you can find the journal and some audio affirmations and some other ways that you can work with me one-on-one virtually. And then also I love working with people in person. I'm a holistic healing arts practitioner doing body work, gravity assisted body work, CranioSacral, lots of wonderful modalities. I love just creating a nourishing, nurturing experience for deep transformation and healing. So you can find more of my offerings as well on finklehoo.com, which is my last name. So check me out, say hello. Love hearing from you guys. And also a little free gift in the show notes as an audio affirmation for you guys to use your affirmations to uplift and inspire. And on that note, I always love closing out with an affirmation. So you're welcome to join me on this one, inspired by today's conversation. So you can, if you like, place your hand on your heart, maybe close your eyes if that feels comfortable for you, and start to take a deep breath. Every day in every way, I am living in integrity to my truth. Every day in every way, I am living in integrity to my truth. That might always be changing as well. Every day in every way, I am living in integrity with my truth. It is easy for me to clear out any ways in which that I'm not living in my truth. It is getting easier and easier for me to clear out any ways in which that I might not be living in my truth. I am an honest person. I am a loving person. I am kind, and I am making a positive difference in the world. And so it is. Thank you all so much for listening. Thank you guys for this amazing sparked conversation.
Indeed. Boom. Stay
Yeah.
smart, people.